So, then, Faust, which received its original form from a dramatic impulse, deepens presently to thoroughly lyrical tones and closes in a meditative pianissimo, interrupted by pensive pauses. The Divine Comedy seems to follow almost the opposite path. The plan and framework of the poem are scientific, and every detail seems calculated in advance. The structure in its completeness, the noble proportion. Proportions. Noble. And the mechanism of the poem will be intelligible to everyone who has made himself familiar with medieval scholasticism. The much-admired consistency and clearness of so-called unity of structure is rather architectural than organic to attain. It required rather a master builder. A master builder than a creative poet. It may well have been all the more difficult to move freely within these walls and circles. An unruly fantasy is here bridled, an unruly fantasy. An unruly is here bridled by an incredible mastery. A whole sea of imaginative visions rages against the dikes, the dikes of the general plan. But reason merely indicates the direction in which strong-winged imagination rushes on, and all personal suffering, feeling, and desire, all hatred, all love, all earthly cares are carried by it down into hell, or up into changeless heaven. And not only the practical execution, but also the inner development of the poem and the evolution of the poet pass, as we shall see later in detail, from cleverness and rationality to a sentimental and volitional mysticism. The final ennoblement of man no longer lies in that illumination of reason which Beatrice on the summit of the Purgatorial Mountain, the summit of the Purgatorial Mountain had demanded. It culminated love and rings out. Rings out in the words. And rings out in the words. But now was turning my desire and will, even as a wheel that equally is moved, the love which moves the sun and the other stars. Viewed from this side, Faust no longer appears exclusively the poem of the control and discipline of the will, and the comedy also goes far beyond the glorification and unfolding of human and divine truth. The unfolding of human and divine truth. In Faust, man passionate and unpractically practical, grows calm in the contemplation of a deep, harmonious connection between the natural and the spiritual world. In the comedy, absorption in the inner life of man and in the future world leads to a complete elevation of character. It may well have been the conditions of their respective ages which, before all else, made Goethe give to his work a practical foundation and a dramatic form, and Dante to his a scientific, theological foundation and visionary shape, but that neither became a prisoner. within his plan that each strove to move away from the pre-established goal, that the one transformed the vision into drama, and the other his drama into a vision. All this may have been made inevitable in the last resort by the peculiarity of their natures. Of course, historical conditions also played a part, of course. F.R. Gundolf has shown this excellently in his Goethe, Berlin, 1916. Pages 24-25. Dante's world was a compact one, visible as a whole. Goethe's was already shattered, not to be viewed as one, and its foundations had largely become insecure. Dante was able, from his central point, with a mighty grasp, to draw his world to himself, within himself. For Goethe, with like powers facing his own world, this was no longer possible. He had to find his bearings in this incoherent, unlimited world. He had to seek out his own place and the materials which he could use to depict and support his ego. So his entire creation, as compared with Dante's and Shakespeare's, seems somewhat experimental, tentative, and his laborious quest in Faust and in Wilhelm Meister, compared with Dante's unerring calm assurance, was certainly a necessity, even though Goethe has made a virtue of it. Oh, a virtue of it. It was first necessary to disclose these natural peculiarities in order that we might then see clearly to the very bottom! The diversity and the similarity of the two works. The differences strike the eye more quickly than the similarity. Dante's destiny! Every incident, almost every word from him, every feature in his countenance are austere and grim. But Goethe's life, his poetry, his scientific works, his whole personality are pervaded by a gentle, self-poised spirit. This simple, sensuous beauty was denied to Dante. Repellent, defiant, haughty, he passed through the world. Everything that he had begun had remained fragmentary, unhappy in love, pitifully shipwrecked in his political hopes and plans, interrupted into ambitious scientific works. He throws himself finally, with all the impetuosity and persistency of his will upon his unique life task, and never leaves it again until it stands forth living and perfect.